Today is day 27, and the diplomatic window that Trump announced 3 days ago is about to close. Let me tell you what actually happened on this specific Thursday, because there are 5 distinct developments that, taken together, describe exactly where this war is heading, and none of them point toward a quick resolution. Start with the most significant: Iran's formal response to the U.S. 15-point peace plan. Pakistan's foreign minister confirmed on Thursday morning that Pakistan had delivered the American ceasefire framework to Tehran and had received a reply. According to Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency, which is close to the IRGC, Iran's response was sent overnight through intermediaries. A senior Iranian official told Iran's state media Press TV that the proposal was one-sided and unfair. Tasnim went further, publishing what it described as the Iranian view that Trump is feigning diplomacy to mislead the world by presenting a seemingly peace-seeking image, with the specific goals of keeping global oil prices lower and buying time to prepare for a new act of aggression in southern Iran through a ground incursion. That last phrase is pointed. It names Karg Island directly in all but word, and it was published in a state-adjacent outlet on the same day that U.S. sources were confirming to multiple news organizations that the Trump administration is actively weighing options for a potential ground operation to seize or control Karg Island. Iran's 5 counter-conditions, as outlined by state television, are the following: a complete end to all U.S. and Israeli attacks and assassinations, concrete, verifiable guarantees that the war will not be repeated, guaranteed payment of war damages and compensation, a comprehensive end to hostilities across all fronts, including against all Iranian-aligned resistance groups in the region, and formal recognition of Iran's sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. Read that last condition carefully. Recognition of Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz is not a negotiating position. It is a declaration of a new strategic reality. Iran is not asking for the strait to be reopened on terms that return the waterway to its pre-war status as an international passage. It is asking the United States to acknowledge that Iran controls this body of water. That is categorically different from any position Iran has publicly stated in the decades of prior U.S.-Iran negotiations. It is a demand that no American administration could accept without fundamentally reordering the entire security architecture of the Gulf. The fact that Iran put it in writing via intermediaries on the day it rejected the U.S. plan is a message. The message is, we are not negotiating the strait's status. We are telling you we own it. Now to the killing that happened overnight Wednesday into Thursday. Israel announced on Thursday morning that it had assassinated Alireza Tangsiri, the commander of the IRGC Navy, in a strike on the southern port city of Bandar Abbas. Netanyahu confirmed the killing publicly in a video statement, calling Tangsiri the individual responsible for leading the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and describing the operation as a joint U.S.-Israeli achievement. The IRGC Navy is a separate and parallel military structure from the regular Iranian Navy and is considered among the most operationally significant branches of the entire IRGC framework. Tangsiri had led the force that deployed mines in the strait, organized the interdiction of commercial shipping, and directed the naval component of Iran's asymmetric pressure strategy throughout the war. His killing is militarily significant, but it does not open the strait. The mines remain. The IRGC's institutional command structure and operational doctrine do not depend on any single individual to the degree that removing him disrupts the mission. Within hours of the announcement, Iran's military showed no change in its posture in the waterway. The strait remained functionally closed to normal commercial traffic. What the killing does accomplish is signaling the same logic that has driven the entire decapitation strategy since February 28th. Israel and the United States are demonstrating that no Iranian official, regardless of rank or function, is beyond reach. Since the war began, the confirmed list of killed Iranian officials includes Supreme Leader Khamenei, IRGC leadership figures including Ali Larijani and Gholamreza Soleimani, Intelligence Minister Esmail Khatib, and now the IRGC Navy commander. That list is the longest and most senior string of state assassinations in modern history executed in under a month. The strategic bet behind it is that this level of attrition eventually compels Iranian leadership to negotiate from a weakened institutional position. The counter-argument, which Iran's behavior so far appears to support, is that Iran's decision-making system is sufficiently distributed that it can absorb these losses without changing its strategic direction, and that each killing increases domestic Iranian pressure for continued resistance rather than reducing it. Now, Trump's cabinet meeting, because what Trump said on Thursday fundamentally contradicts what he said on Monday. On Monday, March 23rd, Trump told reporters in Memphis that a deal was close, that Iran wants to make a deal, that there were major points of agreement, that the U.S. and Iran had been having very good and productive conversations. He spoke with the confidence of someone who believed the diplomatic track was substantively advanced. On Thursday morning, in opening remarks at a White House cabinet meeting, Trump said, "I don't know if we'll be able to do that." He added that Iran's negotiators are acting strange. He said, quote, "They are begging to make a deal, not me." He claimed the war was running extremely ahead of schedule at 26 days in, referencing an internal estimate of 4 to 6 weeks to achieve mission objectives. And he warned on Truth Social that Tehran had better get serious soon before it is too late, because once that happens, there is no turning back. That shift from Monday to Thursday is worth naming precisely. On Monday, Trump was the dealmaker, claiming imminent success. On Thursday, Trump was the hardliner warning of irreversible escalation. This is not a negotiating posture. This is a president who received Iran's rejection of his plan and pivoted immediately to threatening language to avoid the appearance of having been rebuffed. Iran noticed. Foreign Minister Araghchi, speaking Wednesday, said that Washington's diplomatic outreach amounts to an acknowledgement of failure after previously demanding unconditional surrender. He acknowledged an indirect exchange of messages through intermediaries, but explicitly denied that any negotiations had taken place. Iran's military spokesperson said the U.S. was only negotiating with yourselves. That line, negotiating with yourselves, is strategically precise. Iran is pointing out that Trump's public claims of talks were not matched by any Iranian counterpart acknowledging those talks. The gap between what Washington was saying and what Tehran was confirming has been consistent since March 23rd. And by Thursday, even the White House had stopped claiming specific progress, with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt cautioning only that the situation was fluid. The OECD weighed in on Thursday with numbers that contextualize everything else. In its latest global economic forecast, published today, the OECD estimated that the war in Iran will cause G20 inflation to run 1.2 percentage points higher than previously expected in 2026, bringing the G20 average to 4%. The United States specifically is projected at 4.2% inflation. The United Kingdom at 1.5 percentage points above prior estimates. The OECD report used the specific language, "The evolving conflict in the Middle East will test the resilience of the global economy." That is a diplomatic way of saying what the IEA said more bluntly a week ago. This is the largest energy supply disruption in history, and no country is immune to its effects. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency responded to those numbers on Thursday by issuing an emergency fuel waiver, allowing nationwide sales of E15 gasoline, fuel blended with 15% ethanol rather than the standard 10%, in an attempt to stretch domestic fuel supplies. The EPA also removed all federal restrictions on E10 sales, with both waivers taking effect May 1st. These are domestic emergency measures. They are being taken because the war is causing Americans to pay significantly more at the pump, and the administration has no other near-term lever to pull that does not require either ending the war or making further concessions to Iran. The congressional dimension on Thursday is also worth noting. According to CNN reporting, a classified briefing for the House Armed Services Committee on Wednesday generated significant frustration from both Republican and Democratic lawmakers. Officials who attended told CNN the frustration centered on the prospect of U.S. ground troops entering Iran, specifically around what mission those troops would serve and whether adequate protection could be provided. Republicans, who had repeatedly rejected resolutions requiring congressional authorization for the war, were now privately expressing concern about the war's direction to military and intelligence officials in a closed session. That is a political signal. Congressional Republicans have given Trump virtually unlimited deference on this war. If they are now asking uncomfortable questions in closed hearings, it means the domestic political calculus inside the Republican caucus is beginning to shift, even if that shift is not yet visible in public votes. Now, the development that is the least covered, but potentially the most consequential. Iran issued a warning on Thursday that it has both the will and ability to create a credible threat against the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. The Bab al-Mandeb is the narrow waterway between Yemen and Djibouti that connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. It is a completely separate choke point from the Strait of Hormuz, located thousands of miles away at the southern end of the Arabian Peninsula. Approximately 12% of global oil supply passes through it. It is also the route through which oil from the Gulf reaches Europe via the Suez Canal. Iran's threat to extend its maritime disruption to the Bab al-Mandeb is not a new capability claim. The Houthis in Yemen have already demonstrated, through years of Red Sea attacks during the Gaza conflict period, that this waterway can be disrupted by Iran-aligned forces. What is new is Iran making this threat directly and explicitly as a condition of the current war. The message is, if you continue, we will not just hold the Strait of Hormuz. We will threaten every major maritime corridor through which your energy supply travels. If Iran or Iran-aligned forces were to make the Bab al-Mandeb as problematic as the Strait of Hormuz currently is, the disruption to European energy supply would be catastrophic. Europe's LNG imports from Qatar already face the Hormuz closure. Its oil routing around Africa is adding weeks and enormous cost to each journey. A simultaneous Bab al-Mandeb threat would close the Suez route entirely, forcing all Gulf to Europe energy transit around the Cape of Good Hope. The cost increase alone would add significantly to European energy prices that are already at crisis levels. On the ground across the region on Thursday, Israel conducted what it described as a wave of extensive strikes targeting central Isfahan, with civilian casualties reported in residential areas. Iranian missile impacts were recorded in Tel Aviv, Kafr Qasim, Ganei Tikva, Kiryat Atta, and Jerusalem, with people taking cover in bomb shelters across central Israel throughout the afternoon local time. In northern Israel, a Hezbollah rocket struck Nahariya, killing a man in his 30s and critically injuring another. It was the first Israeli civilian killed from Lebanon in this conflict, and IDF confirmed it openly. Saudi Arabia intercepted and destroyed Iranian drones targeting its oil-rich eastern province for the third consecutive day, including strikes aimed at the Ras Tanura, Gawar, and Abqaiq facilities, the same infrastructure complex that was struck in the 2019 Abqaiq drone attack. In Lebanon, the IDF announced it had killed an IRGC Quds Force commander operating in the country. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdelhadi met with Lebanese President Joseph Aoun in Beirut on Thursday, describing both sides as showing a mutual desire for calm and exploration of negotiations, while warning that no specific conclusions had been reached. That formulation, desire for calm, no conclusions, is an accurate summary of the entire diplomatic track as of day 27. The 5-day pause on strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure, which Trump announced on March 23, expires tomorrow. The question this creates is the same question it created when Trump issued his original 48-hour ultimatum on March 21. What happens now? Iran has formally rejected the U.S. proposal. Iran has offered 5 counter-conditions that include terms the U.S. cannot accept in their current form. The IRGC Navy commander is dead. Strikes are intensifying across Iran. Civilian casualties are rising. The OECD is warning of sustained global inflation. The al-Mandeb is now explicitly in play. Congressional Republicans are asking uncomfortable questions in closed hearings. And Trump is at a cabinet meeting saying he doesn't know if a deal is possible. None of that is a de-escalation trajectory. It is a war that is consuming options faster than it is generating them. And Iran's strategic position, hold the strait, reject maximalist terms, wait out the domestic political pressure in Washington, remains as coherent today as it was on day one. The question is not whether Iran can endure this. It is whether the United States, its allies, and a global economy absorbing a historic energy shock can maintain the political will to continue it without an exit in sight. Tomorrow, the clock runs out, and then we find out what Trump does next. There is one final detail from Thursday that crystallizes the whole situation in a single image. Masses of pro-government supporters gathered in Tehran last night, holding flags and portraits of Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. This happened on day 26 of a war that has killed over 1,750 Iranians and destroyed tens of thousands of civilian structures. The government that Trump and Netanyahu calculated would fracture under military pressure is instead staging public rallies. Analysts tracking the war through week 3 found little evidence of significant military defections or desertions, a phenomenon that has historically been considered a necessary precondition for regime change through external military pressure. The theory of this war, that sufficient military degradation would either trigger regime collapse or force capitulation, has not produced either outcome in 27 days. What it has produced is a global energy crisis, an inflation forecast revision from the OECD, a al-Mandeb threat, and a rejected peace plan. The rally in Tehran did not make headlines in Washington, but it should have, because it tells you that the core assumption behind this conflict may be wrong. And if it is wrong, the clock running out tomorrow is not just a diplomatic deadline. It is a moment of strategic reckoning. I will see you in the next one.